John and Maria had what everyone called the perfect marriage. They were high school sweethearts who had built a beautiful life together over 15 years. They had two wonderful children, a lovely home in the suburbs, and jobs they both enjoyed. From the outside, their life was a picture of happiness and stability. John, a software engineer, was a thoughtful and dedicated husband. He often worked late, but he always made sure to spend quality time with his family on weekends. Maria, a freelance graphic designer, had a flexible schedule that allowed her to be there for the kids, picking them up from school and managing the household with what seemed like effortless grace. Their friends envied their relationship. They were the couple who still held hands, who left little love notes for each other, and who seemed to be genuinely in love after all these years. John felt incredibly lucky. He trusted Maria completely and couldn't imagine his life without her. But lately something had felt off. It was subtle at first, small changes in their routine that he barely noticed. Maria started spending more time on her phone, smiling at messages he couldn't see. She began having girls' nights more frequently, coming home late with vague stories about her evening. When John asked, she'd just laugh it off, saying he was being paranoid and that she just needed some time with her friends. John tried to dismiss his concerns. He loved Maria, and he wanted to trust her. He told himself he was just stressed from work, that he was imagining things. After all, they had a history, a family, a life built on mutual trust and respect. Why would she throw all of that away? He pushed his doubts to the back of his mind, focusing on his work and his children, hoping that this strange distance he was feeling would eventually disappear. But the unease lingered, a small cold knot in his stomach that he couldn't quite shake, no matter how hard he tried. One Friday, John's boss let everyone leave work a few hours early as a reward for finishing a major project ahead of schedule. John was thrilled. He decided to surprise Maria and the kids. He imagined their happy faces when he walked through the door unexpectedly. He stopped at a bakery to pick up Maria's favorite cupcakes, and then at a flower shop for a bouquet of her favorite lilies. As he drove home, a sense of warmth and anticipation filled him. He pictured the kids running to hug him and Maria giving him that special smile that always made his heart skip a beat. This was his life, the life he cherished, and he felt a renewed sense of gratitude for everything they had built together. He pulled into the driveway, noticing that Maria's car was the only one there. He figured the kids were probably at a friend's house. He quietly unlocked the front door, wanting to make his surprise perfect. The house was silent, which was unusual. Normally, even when Maria was alone, she'd have music playing or the TV on in the background. He set the flowers and cupcakes on the kitchen counter, a small smile on his face. "Maria?" he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet house. "Honey, I'm home early." There was no answer. He frowned, a flicker of concern crossing his mind. He called her name again, a little louder this time. Still nothing. Maybe she was in the backyard. He checked, but the yard was empty. He walked back inside and headed up the stairs toward their bedroom, assuming she might be taking a nap. The knot in his stomach from the past few weeks returned, tighter this time. He couldn't explain why, but a strange sense of dread began to creep over him as he climbed the stairs. As he approached their bedroom, he heard a faint sound, the soft clinking of glass. He paused outside the closed door, listening. Then he heard Maria's voice, low and intimate, followed by a man's soft laugh. John's heart stopped. It wasn't a voice he recognized. Every happy thought, every ounce of anticipation he'd felt just moments before, evaporated, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. His hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. He took a deep breath, his mind racing, trying to find a rational explanation. Any explanation, other than the one that was screaming in his head. He pushed the door open. The scene that met his eyes would be burned into his memory forever. Maria was sitting on the edge of their bed, but she wasn't alone. A man was with her, and they were laughing, leaning close to each other. But it was the detail on the nightstand that shattered John's world. There, next to their bed, were two wine glasses, one of them still half full with red wine. There was also an open bottle of their special occasion wine, the one they had been saving. It wasn't the man's presence alone, or even Maria's guilty expression as her eyes widened in shock upon seeing him. It was the two glasses. Two. An intimate gesture. A shared moment in their private sanctuary. In that single instant, John knew the truth. The air went thick with a silence that was louder than any shout. The man scrambled to his feet, stammering apologies as he grabbed his shirt and hurried out of the room, not even making eye contact with John. Maria just sat there, frozen. The color drained from her face. John didn't yell. He didn't scream. A strange, chilling calm washed over him. He just stared at the two wine glasses. They represented a betrayal so profound that words felt inadequate. That wine was for their anniversary. That bedroom was their space. And she had invited a stranger into it, sharing an intimacy that was supposed to be theirs alone. "John, it's not what it looks like," Maria finally whispered, her voice trembling. But it was exactly what it looked like. The two wine glasses told the whole story. They spoke of secret meetings, of shared laughter he wasn't a part of a betrayal that cut deeper than a knife. John didn't respond. He slowly turned around and walked back down the stairs. He picked up the beautiful lilies and the sweet cupcakes from the counter, walked to the trash can, and dropped them in. Each item hitting the bottom of the bin felt like a final punctuation mark on their 15 years together. He didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. His marriage, the perfect picture he had cherished for so long, was over. The days that followed were a blur of pain and logistics. John moved into the guest room. The house, once filled with laughter and love, was now shrouded in a heavy, suffocating silence. They barely spoke, and when they did, it was only about the kids. John made sure the children were shielded from the tension as much as possible, plastering on a fake smile and pretending everything was normal whenever they were around. But at night, alone in the sterile guest room, the facade would crumble. He would stare at the ceiling, replaying the scene in his mind. The image of the two wine glasses a constant, painful reminder of Maria's betrayal. He felt a storm of emotions: anger, heartbreak, confusion. How could the woman he loved, the mother of his children, do this to him? To them? He tried to piece together when it all started, looking back at her late nights, her secretive texts, her growing distance. The signs had all been there, but he had chosen to ignore them, blinded by trust and love. Maria tried to talk to him, to explain, to apologize. She cried and begged for forgiveness, telling him it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. But her words felt hollow. How could it mean nothing when she had brought another man into their bed, into the heart of their home? John knew he couldn't stay in that house. It was no longer a home, but a monument to his broken heart. He started looking for an apartment. It was a difficult process, not just practically, but emotionally. Every step he took toward leaving felt like another confirmation that his life was irrevocably broken. But he also knew it was necessary. He needed to create a new, safe space for himself and his children, a place that wasn't tainted by betrayal. He needed to start the long, arduous process of healing, and he couldn't do that under the same roof as the person who had shattered his world. A few weeks later, John found a small, bright apartment not too far from the kids' school. Moving day was one of the hardest days of his life. Packing up his belongings felt like packing up the remnants of his failed marriage. He took his clothes, his books, and a few pieces of furniture. As he packed, he found old photos of him and Maria, smiling and happy. Each one was a fresh stab to the heart. He left most of the shared memories behind, taking only the things that were solely his. When it was time to go, he hugged his children tightly, promising to see them the next day. Their confused, sad faces were almost more than he could bear. As he walked out the door for the last time, He glanced back at Maria, who was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. He felt a pang of sadness, not for the end of their love, but for the end of the beautiful family they once were. As he drove away, he didn't look back. He was driving toward an uncertain future, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a tiny glimmer of hope. He knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but it was his road, and he was determined to build a new, happier life for himself and his children. The image of the two wine glasses would always be there, but he was resolved not to let it define his future. It was a painful chapter, but it was time to turn the page. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We appreciate your support.